Welcome to the Australian Defence Briefing. I'm delighted to be introducing our presenters, Wing Commander Mick Tully, Commander Richard Austin, and Lieutenant Commander James Knight. First up, we have Wing Commander Mick Tully. Wing Commander Mick Noddy Tully enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force in June 1991 as a navigator, now Air Combat Officer. He has completed 2 flying tours with Number 11 Squadron, initially flying a P3C and then later the AP3C Orion aircraft. He has also completed 2 flying tours as a qualified instructor, one instructing ab initio students at East Sale in Victoria, and a second converting air combat officers into the AP3C. From 2006 to 2011, Wing Commander Tully completed flight commander and executive officer roles within 92 Wing, and then staff officer positions within Headquarters Surveillance and Response Group. In 2016, Wing Commander Tully commenced duties within the Air Warfare Centre as the Executive Officer, Airforce Rangers Directorate, and then Staff Officer for the Advanced Training and Test Environment. His primary task throughout his tenure at the AWC has been advancing Air Force's live, virtual and constructive capability, in particular developing from the ground up an advanced synthetic collective training environment for Air Force's high-end simulators and training devices. Operationally, Wing Commander Tully has completed two tours of duty in the Middle East, receiving a Commander Australian Theatre Silver Commendation during his first deployment in 2003. He has flown around 4,400 hours, of which almost 3,100 hours are on the Orion aircraft variants. His flying career has taken him to most corners of the world. Thank you, Wing Commander Tully. I'll hand over.
Thank you very much for those the introduction there, Fred. So I'll be sharing having the PowerPoint presentation coming up there shortly. Just by way of introduction, Wing Commander Mick Tully. I work at the Air Warfare Centre in Adelaide under Air Force Rangers Directorate, and as pointed out, my main remit is working for the Advanced Training and Test Environment. Today I'll have a chat about simulation and navigating uncertain futures, which in current political climate is always a topical aspect. Next slide, thanks. So that's me, and one of my other tasks is also as RAF Head of Delegation to a Five Eyes Interoperability Council, so working with the US, UK, Canada, and also New Zealand on enterprise aspects with regards to simulation. Next slide. So what are we trying to basically enable from a simulation perspective? The screen displays the number of capabilities that we have within Air Force that we all need to learn how to fight together. Now we've done a number of years and we've been able to do this in the live environment quite well. However, a lot of simulators were purely bought for the meat and potatoes flying, as I describe it, the hands and feet pieces and just basic training. We're now looking to take those devices the next level up for collective training and basically creating the virtual space similar to a gaming community, an ability to exercise in the virtual space with all those same capabilities. And we're not just talking aircraft, we're talking JTACs on the ground, we're talking intelligence folks within DGSOs or mobile crew type folks. Next slide, thanks. Some of the important construct, I suppose, from a military perspective, we often use the terms live, virtual, constructive, and for the audience, I thought it was worthwhile just clarifying these for ability there. So we've got live is basically, think of it as real people using real equipment, flying real aircraft, etc. Virtual is real people using virtual devices or real equipment in a training mode. So a training system within the aircraft, for example, or a simulator. And then constructive is fundamentally a computer-generated force that basically acts autonomously or to a rule set and interacts within that environment. Now, LVC is slowly being overtaken by a vernacular with regards to live, synthetic, blended. It's very, very similar. All it is live is still live aircraft. Synthetic now really combines the virtual constructive world, and blended is fundamentally the live, virtual, and constructive. So I thought that was important as we lead into the following slides. Next slide, thanks. So training a 5th Gen Air Force is a real challenge for Air Force, and being able to create an environment that is as complex as you see on the screen, from working from denied through contested to permissive, working from the seabed all the way to space, and pulling all those assets together on a very regular basis to exercise is quite costly, quite expensive, and a logistical nightmare in some instances, but can be done. Being able to do this in the virtual space where we can pull it on tap and work it on a much more regular basis in order to help stave off the uncertain futures, etc., and be prepared as possible is quite important, and we're working into that in the virtual area now. Next slide. Key aspect to 5th Gen aircraft needs-wise is flat out they are highly complex. They require high fidelity models. They have behaviours and tactics indicative adversaries that are already programmed in. They have data fusing algorithms, so that near enough is no longer good enough. Having a slow flying aircraft that can just be out there to be shot is now classified as not even a threat type arrangement, and that's all automated. The pilot is now becoming more of a mission system operator who is being presented with lots of data that's already giving him the answers or her the answers, and then they can basically act on that. So it's also able to handle that complexity and density as per that previous slide. Next slide, thanks. So why is LVC or LSB really required? 4th and 5th Gen platforms increasingly cannot be tested and exercised in the live environment. With the synthetic environment, it provides the ability to regularly generate the required scale of activity with the complexity, density, and fidelity of threat whilst operating within security constraints. It provides effectiveness and efficiencies. We can repeat it and repeat it until we get it working and going as the way we'd like, and it's cost effective. The repeatable and modifiable aspect is the most important. Next slide. Other aspects that come in is opposition. It's all well and good to train against your own forces, but being able to train against opposition forces with all those aspects is quite important. The security aspects, some of our capabilities are break in case of war, but we still need to exercise those. The beauty of the synthetic environment is safe, secure, and enables us to fully train as we would be expected to fight. Other limitations these days, modern weaponry, modern sensors, some of our ranges, even in Australia, with some of them closing in on the size of Texas, are getting too small. There's other aspects with regards to instrumentation, government limitations with what we can do on those ranges as far as emitting in those spaces. There's environmental pressures, noise, civil community is moving into these very large ranges. We've got complex EW radars, communication systems, so it's costly, let alone pulling all the forces together as well as described earlier. Slide. So how much synthetic training do we really need? So looking to the US, for example, with regards to their readiness for their high-end training in order to be fully prepared. From literature, we can see that the F-16 uses the simulator for prime operational training around 25% of its time. That's for the high-end training, not necessarily the meat and potatoes flying, the high-end training. That increases on the F-32 up to about a third, even 34%. And the F-35, which Australia flies, we're estimated to be greater than 45% of the time. Now, by the time you add that in to the space where I'm using that for the high-end training, then my meat and potatoes training for hands and feet, learning how to land, take off, convert folks, I then have to also mix in how do I not just fight that aircraft, but I now combine it with the other aircraft in the Australian fleet. So my F-35 playing with my Super Hornets, with my Growlers, with my E-7s. So really what we need to do is we've got to get smarter with our spending. That one dollar sign in the middle is our one bucket of money. We have to spread it across all those environments. And slowly the synthetic space is growing in importance. Slide. Really, what is the panacea? The blended environment is where it really is at the end of the day, where we could go out onto a range. So in the diagram there, Platform 2 is a real aircraft on a range being lit up by a real ground-based missile system. With technologies these days, I was literally in the United States not even 3 weeks ago, participating in an event that demonstrated this capability, where we had somebody sitting in a simulator over 100 miles away, flying, participating, interacting with a live aircraft. They could both see each other, they could talk to each other, they could see each other on radar, they could shoot each other and interact. This capability is coming, and it is a real game changer from an Air Force perspective. Next slide. The problem is we're not there yet. Many initiatives are still in the concept demonstration portion. It's primarily on 4th gen platforms, and we're working the 5th gen aspect, and that will come. The trial that we were involved in was SLATE, or Secure LVC Advanced Training Environment. It really has an aim point of just beyond 2025 for delivering to a wider audience, unfortunately. Slide. So what are we doing in the meantime? Between now and then, we do participate in a number of synthetic exercises in order to train and work towards that 5th gen space. We do Coalition Virtual Flag with the US, Coalition Virtual Guardian. We also do activities with the Australian Navy and US Navy. And then RAF itself also holds a number of exercises events. The key one is right at the bottom there, the Air Warfare Instructors course. So the way we train our highest caliber people is heavily reliant on the synthetic exercise space. Slide. So that is an Air Force view on simulation and navigating the uncertain future. Thank you. I'll pass on to my contemporaries.
Okay, just looking at questions. Any questions from the audience? You can put them into the Q&A in the Hoover platform. Well, I had one, Commander Tully, on moving into that 5th gen space. How much, you've talked about the challenges of moving on from the 4th gen. How much can we learn from our US colleagues and from overseas and move into that 5th gen space? And what are they doing about it? And how's it?
We working multiple.
You might need to shut down your Woover. Yep.
Yeah. So we do have a very close relationship with the US and involved in all the activities. So we do buy in and actively participate. So as per the SLATE trial just recently, led by US Navy and participated in by the US Air Force, we actively get involved. We do see that as the way of the future. And given that the bulk of our Air Force assets come from the USAF or the USN, it's vitally important that we just keep pace with those two services. And it is just an active side of Air Force that we get involved and actively pursue it.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on. Next up we have, thank you, Mick, that was a really good talk. Very forward looking there. Next up we've got Commander Richard Austin. Commander Austin joined the RAN in 1988 as an apprentice air technical aircraft and completed his initial training at HMAS Nirimba in 1990. Commander Austin transferred commissioned in 1995 and commenced his mechanical engineering degree at RMIT, completing in 1999. Commander Austin has served in HMAS Anzac, Arunta and Ballarat, fulfilling his engineering officer training, culminating in a position as the Marine Engineer Officer in HMAS Ballarat. Shore posting have included maintenance manager for the Minehunter class of vessels, officer in charge of the Mobile Operational Technical Unit, Marine Engineering, the lead organisation in the Royal Australian Navy for the Condition Monitoring Program for the Fleet. Commander Austin has been awarded a Master of Management Studies, Defence Capability Development Acquisition, Master of Arts, Strategy and Management, and a Master of Science, Reliability Engineering. Recent postings have included Maritime Systems Division, RAM Cell, Navy Logistics Branch, Navy Capability Division, Littoral Branch, and Future Navy Workforce Branch. Promoted to Commander in 07 December 20, and posted the current position as Deputy Director, Navy Modelling and Simulation. Thank you, Commander Austin. Okay, I'll just move on then. Sorry, just a moment. I'll introduce Lieutenant Commander James Knight, and we'll hear from him. Lieutenant Commander Knight joined the REN through the undergraduate scheme in 2009, completing a Bachelor of Commerce at the University of Sydney prior to commencing his navigation and warfare training in HMAS Manoora, Wollongong and Parramatta. He has undertaken operational postings, embarked on HMAS Perth, Stewart and Melbourne, and a career that highlights exchange posting to Her Majesty's New Zealand ship Wellington for her Southern Ocean patrols. Lieutenant Commander Knight is a qualified Principal Warfare Officer, PWO, specialising in air warfare and in the final stages of completing his Masters in Project Management through the University of New South Wales, ADFA. In his current role as Officer in Charge, Navy Synthetic Warfare Warfighting Centre, he's passionate about developing REM training, systems, and simulation working across individual, collective, and distributed training, particularly for emerging capabilities. Thank you, Lieutenant Commander Knight.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can.
It's a pleasure to be speaking today on behalf of the Navy Synthetic Warfighting Centre, and Imagine Commander Richard Austin will be on shortly. Just wanted to take everyone through, I suppose, similar kind of problem set to what Wing Commander Tully was discussing, but from a Navy point of view, and how we're able to manage it, and what some of the issues we're dealing with from the Navy Synthetic Warfighting Centre, and how we're able to manage that. Share my screen. So we're able to see my screen now?
No, we can't. Are you able to try again, please?
Right, well, I'll speak anyway, and I suppose there's not too much in the PowerPoint anyway.
We can try
essentially-
to run it for you. Have you provided it to
No.
the conference organizer?
I'll forward it on anyway, but I suppose, so the Navy Synthetic Warfighting Centre, we're located at HMAS Watson, and what we do is the tactical level training for the Navy. Similar to Wing Commander Tully, fidelity is becoming increasingly important in everything we do, and it's a great opportunity today to speak and convey how we're able to work with industry and also wider ADF to try and maximise individual, collective and distributed mission training. So I suppose the problem set for us is slightly different to that of the Air Force. We've spent a fair bit of time, probably over the last 20 years, investing in what's called VRF Navy, the Watson DIS network, and we have some fairly good infrastructure in place that allows for distributed training. And for us, for distributed training, at the moment, we're able to connect into various different ADF and Navy sites, as well as international sites in the US on our own standalone network. This infrastructure was generated in the 1990s. The problem set for us is being able to continually evolve this system with some pretty big infrastructure projects, and also to be able to continue to make the training relevant and for information assurance across what we've seen is some pretty significant changes in cybersecurity over the last 10 years. And some of them do involve essentially reinventing the wheel. One thing in particular is wharfside training. In the early 2000s, we were able to establish that with the Oliver Hazard Perry class, the old FFG frigates. And that is something we lost the ability to do as those ships decommissioned. So we're going through that process again with the Anzac class and the Hobart class destroyer to re-establish wharfside training. The games will be coordinated through the HMAS Watson DIS network. So that's our main kind of infrastructure that we're trying to establish. We also connect in through the Defence Training and Experimentation Network and the Navy Continuous Training Environment. So that's to both other ADF sites, including RAF Williamtown, and to the 7th Fleet, the US 7th Fleet in Yokosuka. So some of our challenges and opportunities that we're dealing with at the moment is to clearly understand what our training audience requires and being able to facilitate that. The complexity comes in being able to support training at different security levels and what the actual training audience is. It is very difficult to achieve individual, collective and distributed mission training at the tactical and operational level at one security classification. So as discussed before, everyone would love a cross-domain solution. However, that is not in existence at the moment. And so a lot of our time for our team and our networking team is trying to maximize what we can at various levels of security, information security, as well as trying to build up whatever systems we can bring onto our Watson network. And the other, which I mentioned before, was re-establishing wharfside training. So there's a lot of work going in at the moment with the Anzac class and the DDG to re-establish those via the Maritime Training Wide Area Network. On the horizon, integrating some new ADF sites with Watson. That's something we're really excited about. We're expecting the MH60 Romeo, the Seahawk simulator down in Albatross to be up and running in the next year or two on the distributed network. So we'll aim to connect them in, and also ideally the P8 simulator at RAF Edinburgh. This would essentially be the focus for some advanced ASW training, something that obviously when we are looking to navigate uncertainties, this is something we're very much eager to train with our RAF colleagues. There are some significant changes included in that, challenges and opportunities that the Navy Synthetic Warfighting Centre is looking to overcome, and a lot of it is about rethinking our tactical training. It got mentioned in the brief before, but the rate of change and our ability to integrate evolving technologies is key, and a lot of this is about an integrated approach between, well, across the ADF, the joint space, and also with the industry to be able to support evolving and emerging technologies. So some of those things that we're seeing at the moment is the Joint Project 9711, which is the replacement of the Defence Training and Experimentation Network. So this is quite a big project to replace the D10 infrastructure. And we at Watson will have to get on board with the change as they take place, because we use a lot of that infrastructure. And if they do change parameters and system requirements, we'll have to update our simulators as well to manage that. One project we're integrating at the moment is an LHD, a Canberra class LHD simulator that we just got built at Watson. So the team's spending a fair bit of time integrating that, and that will also help with that sort of operational level training. So establishing the clear system boundaries and parameters that we are to adhere to, and then we can have a clear sort of joint and collaborative approach to simulation. The other thing about tactical training, as we're seeing it in the Navy environment, is that emerging capabilities will require tactical realism. They will not be able to be trained in the live environment, particularly with modern threats, parameters. There's just no chance that sending HMAS Hobart down to the waters off Jarvis Bay, you won't be able to replicate the threats that we're seeing in the world. So simulation is absolutely key, as Wing Commander Tully discussed before. So that may require high levels of security classification, and so we'll need to continue to evolve our systems to be to ensure information security and to be able to support tactics development. Now I'll just see if I suppose if Commander Austin is back up and running, or is he not?
We've just heard that he's having some problems with his internet, so I'm just trying to see if there's other ways. Did you have his brief at all?
I did. I don't have it on my laptop, but I'm happy to kind of speak a little bit about what I know he was speaking about.
How about you do that, and then we'll see, because I'm checking to see if he can phone into this Zoom.
So I suppose Commander Austin is the Deputy Director of the Navy Modelling and Simulation Office. So this is the overarching authority for Navy Sim across any kind of interconnected simulator. So primarily they're a policy organisation and also the architects for the Navy network, and also our advocate into the joint space for ownership of the maritime synthetic environment. So his team is doing a lot of work in regenerating the operational concept doctrine of what makes up the maritime synthetic environment, because a lot of it is focused purely at the tactical level, where they're thinking more broadly, and also with the future frigate and with, well, likely with future submarines, to articulate clearly to industry what parameters you must meet to work on the synthetic environment, so that we don't have to keep on investing in interoperability, and that those requirements are clearly set to work with industry for future capabilities. Because I think there is a couple of projects we're working at the moment that there is a system that we've been given, and there is a fair bit of work once it's been delivered to make sure that that either the requirements have changed, or that we didn't quite get where we needed to get with interoperability. Something his team is working very much so, and a similar sort of area to what Wing Commander Tully discussed was Navy's investing in the Navy training baseline, which is the US overarching joint live constructive master game controller and also environment. So as discussed before, we operate on the Navy continuous training environment, which is a network that supports US and coalition training. The Navy training baseline is a product that works closely with that system, and it allows us, for our team at Navy Synthetic Warfighting Centre, to use our current master game controller, which is, so I know I'm going very deep in acronyms, but the Joint Semi-Automated Forces master game controller. So that will allow us to access the full versions of that. And what that means for us is access to various different databases for emerging threats. Also allows us to connect in more platforms alongside, and also gives us full capabilities with a lot of the capabilities on the Hobart class and what will be on the future frigate. So it allows a more easy transition to enable those capabilities in the future. And at the Navy Synthetic Warfighting Centre, our team is very much trained in the use of joint semi-automated forces and the Navy training baseline. I believe one of the other items that Commander Roston was going to discuss was some of the work that the Navy is doing in relation to DIS versus HLA, the constant discussion surrounding that, and a couple of the incremental steps that the Navy Synthetic Warfighting Centre is making by transitioning towards DIS version 7 at the moment, and then how that looks in the future for some policy and architecture regarding what standard that new users should subscribe to.
Thank you, Lieutenant Commander Knight. So it seems we're still having some problems. I think Commander Austin is virtually with us. I don't know if he can speak though, so we're just going to confirm that. In the meantime, we have some questions and we'll see how we go. Just 1 minute. So one from Jawahar Bala. So thanks. Similar question to the one posed for Mick. In the context of distributed collective and mission training, notwithstanding the cross-domain challenges, are there any technological standards related challenges and or commercial constructs that are significant barriers to collective training? So in a nutshell, are there any standards or technology issues? What are your biggest ones?
So from our perspective, the biggest ones would primarily be the fact that we have all our simulators have been delivered as they are. They were all, in a general rule, probably purchased out of the spare change left within the project. And I'm being a little cynical, but that is sort of the way in many instances that they've been procured. A lot of those items were built and developed by OEMs who may have some proprietary image generators, the CGFs, etc. From that perspective, we are where we are now, where we are trying to federate those items all together. The beauty of, from a simulation perspective, yes, ideally we would follow the US lead. So the US is developing a program called SCARS, which is all about setting standards with regards to their simulators. So they are looking at, I treat it as if it's creating an iOS, so like your iPhone, and then all the sims will bolt on as like an app from that perspective. So they're setting that standard. The beauty of it is, as being Australia with all our devices pretty much lockstep with the US devices, we'll probably pick up a lot of those standards as part and parcel of keeping step with the US from that perspective. But the other key aspect is that from a simulation perspective, we are really only talking a few languages. So, we are running DIS, be it various versions, but they're all interoperable to a fair margin. HLA, and we can transcribe from DIS to HLA and vice versa. And now, as we start to bring the live environment and the ranges piece into it, TINA, and having an ability to interoperate with those. So we're provided that we main the lockstep in those key standards, then we should be okay in that space.
Can I just extend, you mentioned there that keeping in lockstep with the US, do you see any, just in our past experience with, I guess, inheriting, sort of US-based technologies through FMS cases and so forth, do you see any issues? Do you see it getting any easier in terms of being able to modify those FMS applied items to suit the Australian context more? Do you see that becoming more of an issue, or do you think that will sort of get better as we go along? Given that in these FMS cases, we don't really get to have a lot of say in what those things comprise, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so the reality of it is we've got what we've got. There are a number of ITAR issues that come with it, so the International Trade and Arms, etc., that do stipulate you can only do type arrangement, and they are locked down. Given the fact that in many instances we're going to closely interoperate with the US as part of some sort of larger force or multinational force for UN purposes, etc., those limitations are probably not as hard as they probably were in the past. The global supply chains, those other bits and pieces, do make it easier to get in there. What does that mean, though? It does make it hard for Australian industry to interact when we're buying stuff off the shelf from the US, where it's all being supplied and serviced, etc., from that side of the house. That's why it's key with government, for example, that we continue, I suppose, the active involvement of ensuring that there's Australian industry is involved within those projects as we stand them up, and partnering with those US companies to keep that aspect there. But there are still some very smart people within our defence science and technology areas who are able to work within those remits and bring those Australian ideas to the fore. And, they work very closely with Airforce research labs in the US Air Force, for example, in order to match those. So what, Airforce that I'm involved in right now, as I said, we just completed the slate trial with the US Air Force, US Navy, and their trial environments. And we've also been looking to be involved in future projects with US Air Force.
That's great, and we can help shape that. So, yeah, that's good. Okay, I've got a couple here for Lieutenant Commander Knight. Well done. You adjusted your presentation very well, as a comment there, and I'd agree with that. Is there a link between the LHD Bridge Sim at Watson and the LHD engineering training at Randwick? This is from Michael Hardy.
Yeah, this is something that I think we're definitely interested in collaborating a lot more. I think there's been times that the operations side and the technical side has been very separate, but now with the facility that's been established at Randwick, we work a couple hundred metres down the road, and also the way it's evolved in Western Australia as well with the NESC. So we've got two organisations that work very closely between ops and technical training. So I think that collaboration is something we're looking to, through the Navy Synthetic Warfighting Centre, build up a lot more. And I think with some of the initiatives that are obviously a fair way down the track, but for Ship Zero, for C5000, and for some of the potential Aegis training in the future, there will definitely be a closer cooperation between the technical side and the operations side. I know this is something our team is working pretty closely with. We've got a fairly large weapons electrical team here, and sometimes it is difficult to get them trained up in the hardware, or the ship fit hardware, but also the simulation world, because they are fairly different now. It used to be very similar with, again, the Oliver Hazard Perry class. It was a lot of ships fit equipment. Now it is vastly different. So having that cross-pollinated skills is vital and something we're looking to build with Randwick a little bit more, the OIC out there.
Thank you. Look, Commander Austin is going to join us now by voice. So we'll just see how we go there. Okay. So that's better than we expected.
Thanks, Fred. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. Apologies for the video. We're having some internet fun down here in Canberra. So thanks for your patience. Thank you. Welcome to, I appreciate the invite to present. I'm Commander Richard Austin, and you heard my bio many minutes before James's presentation. And thanks, James, for filling in while I sorted out my technical issues. Next slide. So, Naval Modelling and Simulation. Who are we? Well, we're the organisation within the Navy, and we're mandated to deliver and support synthetic environment in the maritime domain. What does that mean? It means that we are the organisation that provides oversight governance to basically the organisation that James works in, the Navy Synthetic Warfare Centre, and other organisations that need to operate within the synthetic environment. There's many different organisations that we deal with, but we're the ones that are basically on the hook to deliver a synthetic environment. So what do we do? As I said, we're the coordinating organisation for simulation integration into the maritime synthetic environment. Do this by setting the requirements for interfaces integration into both the maritime synthetic environment and other services and joint environment. And that's linking into Mick Tully's organisation, into potentially land in the future, land organisation, and into the joint and DST environments. So what are we trying to do within the Naval Modelling and Simulation Office at this point in time? We're trying to rebuild our synthetic environment capability for the current maritime domain and prepare the synthetic environment for the future and joint domains. So that means looking at what we have at the moment, and we have quite a disparate number of simulators and systems around the country in the maritime domain. How does that fit into our current maritime capability? And how do we deliver that maritime capability into the joint capability and training environment for development of future forces? Next slide, please, if you can hear me. So how are we going about it? So governance is one of our key functions. So that relates to redrafting the policy for the maritime synthetic environment, taking our current Navy policy, Navy direction, and putting it out into the much broader Navy community. That's also linking into the development of the interface requirements for the synthetic capability into the maritime synthetic environment, other services and joint environments. So that's reaching down into projects and programs, seeing what simulation capability or synthetic capability they are looking to introduce or are currently using, and basically providing insurance and assurance that we can operate those systems within our domains. And we use a number of working groups and coordination groups for the cross-capability coordination of capability development. So this is taking at the working level, myself and James Knight, interfacing with Mick Tully's organisation, in a maritime modelling and simulation working group to basically look at the issues that we face at the working level, and then taking it up to the coordination group, which we currently have the Navy Modelling and Simulation Coordination Group, which is the one-star coordination group, which has the lead authorities for the different capability streams that we have within the Navy. And we basically discuss those issues of the synthetic environment across those capability domains so that we can actually get an alignment of where we're traveling within that maritime domain. The integration side of things, which is the oversight, coordination of integration of new simulator systems and management of issues arising from those integration activities. We have a number of new simulator systems that are coming down the line, and we are taking, I guess, the responsibility for the coordination of those activities. So one, we don't lose our current capabilities, and we don't interfere with the activities and training environments that we need to basically keep online to basically develop our maritime forces. And then also activities of updating of simulation capability in the maritime synthetic environment. As I think James mentioned just before, there's a number of things coming down the line, and a lot of that needs the coordination from partly our office and across different other organisations to ensure that those activities don't opportunities to continue our training environment. And management. So part of that is setting the architectural baseline for the maritime synthetic environment. We have a number of things that are on the go at the moment. And so that's basically setting up what are our master game controllers for the synthetic environment, the protocols and languages that our simulators are using, currently majority are DIS and HLA, how we integrate all those. And then one of the key ones is the security and classification requirements for the synthetic environment networks. So we're a small team within the NMSO. We're actually only basically 4 people deep at this point in time. However, as we're progressing and rebuilding this environment, we will be trying to, I guess, enhance our workforce within the Navy Modelling and Simulation Office to deliver all those functions that we've described above. I know it's fairly rapid delivery, noting that we had the issues before, but now I can open up to any questions that the floor may have regarding, I guess, the Maritime Synthetic Environment and the Navy Modelling and Simulation Office.
Thank you, Commander Austin, and thank you so much for being flexible in the light of your technology issues. I think it's come together. We haven't really missed out on that much. So there are some questions here. So to Commander Austin, do you envisage engaging industry as a FIC to participate in some of the relevant working groups? That's from David Fallon.
Yes, we're certainly looking at that. Now, I have had some very early discussions with Navy Industry Liaison Office within Navy Capability Division. And there are activities called the Maritime Environment Working Group, which is where we will basically make presentations to industry on potentially some of our issues and our I guess requirements for progress down certain capability lines. So I have made, as I said, initial approaches to them to potentially get a modelling and simulation topic into a future Maritime Environment Working Group discussion.
Yeah, thank you. I had one for the Navy speakers. This is really forward-looking. Like we spoke about linked up training with the ships alongside. Has it ever been considered that we might do linked up training out at sea? Would that be a future consideration?
Yes, it is a consideration, and it is something we're actually working towards right now, in a sense. Basically, we are, I guess, enhancing our networks for the ship-shore connection, and that will also then enhance our also ship-ship connection whilst at sea, and also ship-shore connections so that you can run stimulation from shore to ships at sea in the synthetic environment.
Oh, that's really good news. I remember discussing this with colleagues some years ago when I was involved with Air Warfare Destroyer, and there were all the concerns about the safety issues and having a safety case for doing such a thing. But that's really good that you're sort of pushing the boundary on that. Good to hear. Another one here from Michael Hardtke. Again to Navy, what about policy around wearables, data collection, data analysis from sensor data collection and head-mounted displays? Anything being done in those areas?
Sorry, do you mind repeating the question?
Sorry. It was around...
Yeah, I can provide some. So there has been some, I guess, discussions and presentations provided to Navy through our Welfare Innovation Navy branch on those wearables, where basically we've been provided, I guess I said, presentations of where you can see people where they are, what their vital signs are, and all that sort of stuff. How far are we going to progress that at the moment? I'm unsure. And it's just something that I guess we're aware of that's out there. How much do we include that into our synthetic environment? I'm unsure at the moment.
If I could ask another one that I'm interested in knowing, for quite a while now, we've been using, it was mentioned earlier by Lieutenant Commander Knight, I guess the linking up the core constructive simulation that's being used, Joint Semi-Automated Forces, JSAF. Now that's been in place for quite a while with the USN and with the Navy here, as well as being used for joint exercises. Are there any plans to move on from that, or is that undergoing upgrades to improve itself, or what's the future there? If you can comment on that.
Yeah, so I'll probably start, Commander Austin, then you can feel free to jump in. Yeah, our team here is still very much main user of Joint Semi-Automated Forces. However, that is under the Joint Collective Training Branch's FMS case. And so for the team here, there is probably some more capabilities with that system that we would definitely like to have access to. And so as far as that is still our primary main master game controller. And so we're definitely looking at options for the future about how we use the Navy training baseline and the set of suites under the JLVC kind of package. So yeah, since 2017, it's very much been JSAF for us, and the team has done a lot of work to, as much as we are able to, contribute back to the use of Joint Semi-Automated Forces and working with Yokosuka and with San Diego to try and to maximise what we can for our master game controller. There is a lot of things we can't do, and so I think this is something in the future that you'll probably see that Air Force and Army will have their own master game controllers, and that we'll use various different databases from various different services or other organisations to try and maximise the sort of the entirety of the ADS master game controller and database management. Is there anything you want to add to that, Commander Austin?
Thanks, James, because I missed part of the question there coming from Fred, so I'm just going to take the gist of it. That so adding on to what James has just said, We are in the progress in liaising with the US on basically creating our own FMS case for Navy training baseline between the Navy and the US Navy. So we will have direct link, direct access, and from the understanding, greater models and entities than we currently have under the JSAF environment provided through JLVC FMS case. So we'll have now direct access, direct link, direct input and updates to the USN once that FMS case is finalised, hopefully early next year. What happens down the future with regards to models, databases, management of centralisation, that's still part of a much wider discussion within, I guess, JP 9711, which is the core simulation capability project across defence, and also how we could manage potentially one database with a number of translators to take that information across to different applications. So there's still a number of things on the table that need to be sorted out over who owns what database, who manages what data, I guess, key applications and game controllers that we're going to be using.
Okay. A related question just popped up from Kevin Hairveld. Can you see a dual master game controller future, example Mac for RAN, JSAF for LVC?
Well, we will use, I guess, JSAF as our link into JLVC that the Joint Space is using. And then I think, is it Ascot that the Air Force are moving to, Mick, in regards to their controller?
Yeah, so from I was looking for an opportunity to jump in. To be honest, I think the answer is that it's going to be multiple. So from an Air Force perspective, we utilise Ascot as our prime backbone CGF at present, and it is very good from a C2 perspective. It's got a lot of functionality, usability, drag and drop contacts, create them very easily. You can adapt them. They do have decision trees, rule sets, etc. in there. Quite dynamic, can up to 10,000 type contacts type arrangement. We also see the importance of being able to utilise US Navy's NGTS, for example. It brings different things to the fore. It's got different databases. It has more complexity and surface-to-air type aspects for the US NavAir assets, etc. So we sort of see that in order to run most distributed training centres, even from examples in the US, that you'll have multiple. So there'll be we're planning on using Ascot, we're planning on using NGTS, and even looking at other products, for example, MACE, which is very much funded and worked towards a high-end EW environment. And you'll just have multiple stations working within the environment. The bulk will be on one, but you'll have those other stations part and parcel of it inputting into the environment. And again, it comes down to the fact we're all talking similar base languages.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. So it's not really one size fits all. Each of them have their own sort of high areas of fidelity and things that they manage better.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. So that's the end of this session, and we're going to go to a morning tea break now. So we're going to resume at 11:15. That's 1/4 past the hour, 11:15 Sydney time.